you and curse you!
Greetings, fellow mortals. Just a reminder, saying it's just my opinion is for cowards. Oh, and expect spoilers for Persona 3, 4, and 5 in this video. After playing through Persona 3 Reload, I took the time to reflect on the overall story of Persona 3. In many ways, the main plot is the best written out of the last 3 games, even if some events could use a little bit more expanding upon, mostly the emotional moments. They are a bit shorter and more abrupt than I originally remembered. But besides that, I still stand by the idea that the story is best overall in Persona 3. The reason for this is because the plot is tied to the character development. In each month, you could point at any character in Persona 3 and tell that they're in a different mindset than the previous month. You can measure their development step by step. Along with that, the social links and linked episodes deal more with the character's relationship with the player and their feelings on someone else rather than changing everything about who they are, at least with the teammates. Trust me, I know there's a lot of ups and downs with the social links in Persona 3. Compare this to Persona 4 and 5 with the main cast. The other games will be ignored because they are so much different than these 3. In both 4 and 5, characters are introduced, have most of their development in their initial arcs, and then remained mostly the same for the majority of the game, with the bulk of the rest of their development happening through their social links and confidants. There isn't a problem with this style, it just makes a very different type of story, where the characters and dynamics remain the same without much variation after they're established. Even the characters like Morgana and Teddy, whose links are determined by story progression, don't really change in how they react to outside stimuli.
I'm an idiot!
Really, the only exceptions are actually Yosuke and Ryuji. Yosuke's leadership and maturity develops as the game goes on, and Ryuji grows to accept that worldwide acceptance shouldn't matter to him. The constant small developments in C's are why most people think that it's the best story, along with the themes of death, grief, and nihilism. The problem is a lot of people aren't able to verbalize why they think Persona 3 is the best one in terms of writing. Just like when they say C's feels like work friends instead of people who would choose to hang out with each other, because at the start, none of the party members would associate with each other outside of school if they could help it. I'm going to start with Yukari because she's the most real out of any of the characters. She feels like a real person, and that's why a lot of people don't like her. Yukari wouldn't have gone out of her way for Fuka. She would have always hated Mitsuru and Junpei. She and Akihiko would have never talked to each other. She would have been cordial with Ken and Koromaru, but never really thought about them outside of those small interactions. Same thing with the others as well. Fuka would have been too shy to speak with anyone. Akihiko would have been obsessed with his training to the point of ignoring absolutely everyone around him. Mitsuru wouldn't have had any of them on her radar. Ken would have no reason to associate with them. Koromaru would have been guarding the shrine. Shinjiro would have scared everyone away, and Dorikun would have been too depressed to say 2 words. And I could see Junpei trying to be friendly with all of them, but then failing because each of them are so standoffish. Talk about an extrovert around a bunch of introverts.
Walk out the door, you see someone that you know and they ask you how you are, and you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
Meanwhile, you can completely see the cast of Persona 4 connecting in some way to each other without the investigation. Kanji would have run into Yosuke and they would have been connected in some way eventually. Rise would have been befriended by Chie and Yukiko. Naito would have been cordial and respectful to all of them. They wouldn't have really bugged each other like C's would have. This, along with the dungeons focusing on them specifically, is why many people say that this is their favorite cast, because it's the game where they do feel like the closest of friends sooner rather than later. Not to say that they would have been as close without the events of Persona 4, but they would still be friendly. Persona 5's characters are a bit different. Like C's, I don't see any of the Phantom Thieves being friends if they never had the metaverse, but as soon as they join the group, they're integrated as a member of the group with little development. It's kind of the in-between of the other 2 games. I don't know if they would actively dislike each other like in Persona 3, because there are times throughout Persona 3 that you feel like C's is just fed up with each other.
I hate you!
And it kind of makes sense. They're all very different people with very different interests, hopes, personalities, and dreams. And they're all forced to live together, go to school together, and fight the dark hour together. They have no breaks from each other. They're like a bunch of people who just realize that they're siblings. Yeah, have that visual in your head when you're romancing one of the characters. That type of situation leads to a lot of tension and aggression. If you want a real life example, when I first moved in with my wife, girlfriend at the time, it was back in January of 2020. 2 months before the lockdown. While both of us had jobs which were considered necessary by the state and could not be stopped, we still saw each other all the time without the ability to even go out for a walk sometimes. It created a pressure cooker scenario where we either learned to get along or we would shatter with no in-betweens. And I married her, so you saw what happened there, and that's what happened to C's. They went through the pressure cooker together. People who have never associated with each other or even liked each other fought through literal hell together, and it turned them from total strangers into a family who could defeat even a worldwide memory wipe because their connection was too strong to break. One of the most emotional parts of the whole game is in December when they find comfort in each other about the fact that they're going to die. And through that support, they find the will to live and to fight.
Hey, who left this bowl of onions here?
Compare this to the other groups. Even while fighting their own gods, there wasn't an extended period of time, actual weeks, where they felt conflicted and depressed. Sure, there were low moments, but those lasted less than a day sometimes, and the player was the one who dragged them out of their funks, not each other. All of this isn't to say that Persona 3 is the best overall of the social sim games. After playing Reload and rethinking Fez, never played Portable, sorry, I've come to the decision that it has the greatest heights, but also the worst lows that you have ever seen. Just look at the Moon and Fortune links. God, those were so bad. And also there was a disconnect between some of the social links with your party members and also the main story. Just look at Mitsuru. You could be hanging out with her and she just blurts out a confession in front of her fiance, but then you head home, she doesn't bring it up, you go to Tartarus and it doesn't seem to affect her at all. It feels a little bit more broken than other games where they do a better job of separating everything. Mostly because I always got the dungeons out of the way on the first day and then went through the social stuff. So the plot was put on hold until the deadline, so I could focus on the character development. Some may view this as worse writing, but it also divides the gameplay and writing more evenly into separate pockets. Plus, you don't come home and see your teammates after just hanging out with them. It's really a pick your poison type of scenario when it comes to writing issues, and it just comes with this style of game. It's why no one has successfully been able to mimic a Persona game just yet. I think the closest was 3 Houses. Oh wait, there was also Tokyo Xandu and Trails of Cold Steel.
You guys all think you're so much better than me.
Oh, Meg, that is the least fancy thing I have ever heard.
In a lot of ways, I consider C's to be the perfect cast of characters because they feel the most like real people. Always evolving, always feeling something different, especially Junpei and Yukari. Their development from month to month is a masterclass of writing. At the same time, I don't know if this is a collection of people I would choose to associate with. I don't think that I would have talked with any of them when I was a teenager, except for Akihiko when it came to sports, fighting, and training. This is way different than the others. I probably would have had a positive, if distant, friendship with the Persona 5 cast, and I would have been good friends with the investigation team. One of the reasons Persona is one of my favorite series is just how different things can feel while having very similar setups and stories. Characters, themes, story beats, emotions, music, setting, designs, and writing make them feel very distinct. Even characters who fit the same role are very different. Junpei, Yosuke, and Ryuji handle situations in extremely different manners. Their relationships with the protagonists are very different too, with Junpei having a love-hate relationship, with Ryuji being the guy that would take a bullet for you, with Yosuke being literally gay for you. I know a lot of people argue about Kanji's sexuality, but can we talk about the fact that Yosuke's awkwardness is really the fact that he wants to D? This is not a negative, I just feel insane that I'm the only one that's pointing this out.
I love this man.
I actually agree with the general consensus with these games. Persona 3 has the best plot and themes, Persona 4 has the best characters, Persona 5 has the best gameplay, and the one that has the best music generally comes down to which one you play first. Everyone says it because it's kind of obvious, because each game focuses on a different aspect, but Reload really made me rethink my view on Cs as a group. A bunch of strangers who actively dislike each other learn to live together and grow into a family who support and love each other, and very distinct in different ways. That's super beautiful to me, and why I think with what Persona 3 was trying to do, that they made Cs a perfect cast. You're welcome to disagree with me, that's fine. After all, everyone is entitled to their objectively wrong opinion.
I love this part! Me too! I have strongly mixed feelings!
Hey, do you like stories about an interconnected world? Then consider giving my LPCO books a try. They are all connected in some way, but you can jump in at any point, unless it's a series. Then you have to start at the beginning. But I got 3 books out right now and 3 coming next year. You will not have to wait long for content. Either way, thank you. I appreciate you. Do not despair.